Oh, honey, you're taller than me today.
I'm taller. I got the big chair.
Aww. This is a super informal setting. We just finished up a workout, but we are behind on the Q&A thing. Just jumping right into it, who is your favorite bodybuilder of all time? Ooh. Do you have a favorite?
Yes.
Who's your favorite?
Mine is forever Dana Lynn Bailey. I don't care what anyone says. She literally, when I was first getting into it, I was on deployment. I would have her YouTube videos on a USB thumb drive and watch them while I was on deployment, and that was like what kept me motivated and got me really into fitness. She's still a legend. She's still putting out content. She still looks amazing.
Yeah.
And I will always be a fan and lover of Dana Lynn Bailey. And I just love the vibe of her and Rob's brand too.
Yeah. I mean, Dana Lynn Bailey is the reason I started bodybuilding. She was the inspiration for the first time I compete. I listened to her content, like I watched her stuff every day before I went and trained, not on deployment, but still, yeah, she was my inspiration for competing too. So DLB, all day, all day.
Times 2.
Next one was, if you could lose any sense, touch, smell, etc., which one and why?
Oh shoot, you go first. I gotta think about it.
I say smell. I know that has a large correlation to taste. Honestly, I could go without taste too, and I think I'd be okay. I'm already half blind and half deaf, so I wouldn't give up those anymore.
Yeah, I feel like smell makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Because even when you think about food, like for me, naturally, I want to say taste first, because dieting would literally be so easy.
So easy.
But at the same time, it's like, when you're thinking about food, I feel like half the time, it's actually the smell that makes it better. Like that literally plays into how you taste and experience food.
Yeah.
So I feel like even if you didn't have smell, like the food, the temperature would be turned down on everything, bad and good.
Yeah.
So.
Plus, there's a lot of bad smells that I could do without. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I promise we're not just gonna answer the same thing for everything. That's a coincidence that the first two are the same answers.
If not bodybuilding, what would you have done or pursued?
I'd be a hillbilly. I'd be reining horses in Texas. For sure.
Fair.
I was a rodeo queen. I was a rodeo kid. I was this close to joining a college rodeo team instead of the military. That's where my heart would be, for sure.
Well, my first degree was in forensic science, and if I were not doing what I do now, I would have continued on that career path. And my goal with that was to work in profiling, crime scene investigation, and do the lab geek stuff, because it's what I like.
That's pretty good. That's pretty badass. All right. I'll ask the next one.
Yeah.
Okay, so our next question is kind of a story question, so I'm just going to read it. I'm nervous to check in. I was perfect on everything, but my scale weight isn't down this week. Should I fast before check-ins to try and see progress?
Oh, I actually hear that pretty frequently. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it is kind of a loaded question because I know all coaches do things differently, but the way that we coach, we're looking at so many different data points that are outside of the scale weight. So scale weight being one, but then we're looking at biometrics like your measurements, waist circumference, hip circumference. We're looking at stress factors and hormone factors, and all of that plays so big into it that it's never scale weight alone. Like, that's never the determining factor for me.
Yeah, and I think too, it's like if you're fasting before check-ins, and let's say it does work and you're down, like what happens when you stop fasting? You're like, it's gonna end up hurting you in the long run, because you could, even if it looks like you made progress that week, depending on how you're, like I said, if that's the only way that you're measuring progress, then what are you gonna do the next week?
Right.
Like if there's no adjustment made and then you're maybe up again. So I think then you would technically lose 2 weeks of adjustments by not just being forthcoming. And I know that it can be scary. Like Sam said, it's actually more common than you think.
Yeah.
Like I know people, high-level athletes who have done this. And it's mentally, it's challenging, especially if you're in a diet and fat loss phase. and you think you're supposed to be losing weight every week, it can be hard to overcome that. But I always think my mindset going into check-ins is I want to present myself as accurately as possible, even if it's not good or even if it's not what I want to be seeing, because then coach can make an adjustment that's going to fix that and then make sure that the next week you're going to be seeing the progress that you need to see.
Yeah. And there's a big communication factor to that too. And I know, like, I think especially as female coaches, we're very adamant about the communication factor between clients and like speaking openly and honestly about these things and always making it very clear to the people that we work with that there's never judgment. There's never punishment for anything, but it's only for like we're here to problem solve and we can't solve the problem if we don't know that there is one. So like Courtney's saying, if you are fasting intentionally in order to try to drop weight, then I don't know that something is wrong. So it takes away my ability to adjust accordingly or maybe explain why we're not seeing a drop, you know?
Yeah, and if you're really close to a show, like, you might look better at the heavier weight.
That's
like
true.
sometimes,
Yeah.
like we'll literally have people check in a couple different times throughout the day, even with some food, because even when you're getting on stage, let's say like whether you're in the context of a contest prep, you might look better at the higher weight. Like I have people check in after 1, 2, 3 meals because we need to find what their best look is, because most of the time your best look isn't fasted and your best look isn't always your lowest weight. Now in a transformation context, if you're looking for fat loss and you're looking for those drops every week too, fat loss is almost never linear. It's almost a never straight shot down. Like it's going to be up and down, and then the overall trend is kind of just down over time. It's like a scatter plot that goes like this.
I like this. I knew what you were going for there. Scatter plot. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
So don't fast before your
Don't
check-ins.
Don't fast before check-ins. Just be honest with your coach, and you know, to kind of end that point, like if you feel like you can't be honest with your coach, is that a reflection of you? Is that a you problem, or is that something that needs to be addressed in that situation? So.
Yeah.
Okay. Easy question. Favorite drinks? Energy drinks or coffee drinks? Just yes.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the time of year. Honestly, I'm going through a phase right now. I'm not super dependent on coffee. There's a point in time where I was drinking like 4 cups a day. Right now, I might not even have 1 a day. So I would say energy drinks for me right now.
I go between both, and not because either one of them gives me energy. Actually, because of my ADHD, I like caffeine doesn't affect me. Coffee makes me feel sleepy, but I like the way it tastes. So both, all the time.
Yeah,
every day.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Now let's do. How important is nutrition in relation to your fitness goal?
Like, so important.
Yeah, I'd say it's like 90%.
Yeah, I mean, that's. I feel like it's you don't get one without the other. Like whatever your fitness goal is, you have to be involving your nutrition, or it's not going to work. But you also have to be training a certain way, or else it's not going to work. The training is variable depending on what your goal is, right?
Yeah.
Like,
but nutrition supports not just aesthetics, but it also supports like endurance and recovery and
immunity.
Yeah, it's never as easy as calories in, calories out, because
digestion.
Yeah, there's so many factors that nutrition impacts. That like, and something I tell people all the time is like most people go their entire adult lives without actually understanding how food makes them feel. And when you start eating better, you're like, oh my God, everything feels so much better.
Yeah.
Like your energy, your digestion, your sleep is better, your sex drive is better, everything is better when you eat well. So I'd say not even just for fitness, just for life, nutrition is like 90% of what you should focus on.
Yeah, and I mean, caveating off that too, a lot of people who maybe aren't super deep into fitness, they don't understand that nutrition, eating healthy doesn't suck. Like, they just don't know how to do it in a way that's fun and exciting and feels good. Because, like, I remember when I was a kid, people would say that, like, certain foods or lower calorie foods or healthy foods taste like cardboard.
To be fair, like 20 years ago they did that.
Like 20 years ago they did, sure. But that's not the case anymore. And there's a lot of ways that you can eat healthy no matter what your, cultural background is or your food palate is. And you can be like enjoying your food and also working towards your fitness goals. And I feel like that's half the battle of what we're doing with our transformation clients is we're just teaching people that it's supposed to be enjoyable. You should enjoy your food all the time.
Yeah.
No matter what. So.
Yeah, like if you're, what's that cliche? Like if your diet has an end date, you'll never be successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not something that you can start, do, see results, and then stop. It's not what it is.
It's a forever thing.
Yeah. Which sounds scary. That sounds intimidating.
No, it's okay, but I feel like this is something that we could honestly talk about for hours.
Yeah.
So we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you still build muscle with only 2 to 3 meals a day? I'd say absolutely.
I mean, can you?
Yes. It's going to be the quality and the nutrient density of those foods. Meal timing and frequency is less significant than the actual, like, content for the day.
There's levels, though. Like, if you're a newbie, sure. If you've been training for 2 years or longer, or, like, if you're trying to level up, maybe you're already kind of in shape, you're already a fitness person, that's not going to work. When we're talking about optimizing muscle protein synthesis, that's 5 protein feedings per day. 5 separate times you are putting lean protein in your body. And if you're trying to build muscle, why would you not optimize it? I know that that's difficult time management wise for some people. I do think you can see progress with 2 to 3 meals to an extent.
I don't think that was related specifically to bodybuilding. It's like you can still build muscle with, and yes, like when you get to a certain extent in bodybuilding, when you're trying to gain a significant amount of muscle mass, then yes. But as a whole, like if your goal is just to gain lean muscle and continue to work in a progressive overload, then yes, I believe you can build muscle with only 2 to 3 meals a day.
It largely depends on your starting point. Yeah. And how much muscle you already have as well.
Yeah. All right. Did you have another one you wanted to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me go to my screenshots. My glutes never get sore anymore. I push hard and do glute activation. Tips? ?
Are you actually pushing hard?
Yeah, and you say you do glute activation.
So, I mean, that's such a broad statement because any glute exercise is glute activation. So I feel like out of context, that's challenging to answer.
Yeah, it's like, a lot of people too, like what you think you're doing may not translate. Like sometimes, like I'll get training help. I'll have Sam look at me. I'll have Charles look at me.
Yeah.
No matter how high level that you get or no matter how many levels you climb, like sometimes it's called your kinesthetic awareness is a little bit off. So you might think you're reaching a certain range of motion, but you're not. You might think you're going deep enough, but you're not. You might be resting at the top of your movement and not even realizing it and then limiting your time under tension that way. And the better that you level up your physique, the harder it is to see those results and the more meticulous you have to be.
Yeah. I would say that for like the longer that you do it too, because our bodies are so adaptable, like you will reach a certain point where you're not excruciatingly sore because your body does adapt to the stimulus over time. And especially if you've been working in the same training split for a good period of time, then you probably don't get as sore as when you first started it. But usually it comes down to like, are you actually really pushing hard, or are you doing the same weight every week, doing the same reps every week, and expecting that you're going to get sore and you're not getting sore. So there's so many ways to work in a progressive overload outside of just amount of weight and amount of reps. Like Courtney's saying, when we focus on time under tension and range of motion and just increasing or decreasing the tempo on the eccentric or concentric, like there's so many different ways that you can manipulate that. And sometimes it's just changing those variables where like when we just trained, we're doing single leg glute press, but focusing on a slower tempo on the concentric range of motion, which totally changes things. So
yeah, and that's the thing too, like I've been having more people send me training videos that are my online clients, and that's a big one. Almost everybody, their speed is off. Like the speed of the rep, they're resting at the top, they're going too fast on the eccentric.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of discrepancies there, and so I think too the best thing that you can do if you're feeling that way is either, like hire a personal trainer that you know is good and have them look at you. Send videos to your coach of some of the exercises you feel like maybe you're struggling with, like you should be seeing more activation.
Mm-hmm.
Or You know, maybe if it's been a while, you might need a deload week. You know, our body does adapt to the stimulus. Maybe you need a deload, pull back on some of that volume, or take a week off from the gym, reintroduce it, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That all the questions?
No, I have a couple more.
Okay.
Do we count all carbs or just net carbs? I'm gonna let you take this one because you explain it so well.
I always say all carbs. And the reason is because fiber actually has calories. And fiber is actually somewhere between 2 to 4 calories per gram, whereas carbs is, right, 4. So, you know, fiber might be less, but even at the lowest, it's still going to be half the amount of carbs. So if you're macro tracking and you want to subtract dietary fiber, or you're eating a lot of really high fiber foods, I would say at least count half the carbs from fiber.
Yeah.
Or I would just honestly count it all. And that's going to depend on the phase that you're in too. Like if you're in a building phase, you know, you're going to want carbs at certain times, you know, post-workout, maybe even intra-workout, that are going to be quickly digestible, that are solely just carbs. You don't want fiber. You don't want to slow down your digestion. We want that going straight to your muscles right then and there. But if you're in a diet phase and you're trying to minimize your calorie intake and you're trying to slow down the digestion of those carbs, and your diet is limited in carbs already, then I wouldn't, you know, you can kind of use that to your advantage and just not subtract any.
So this wasn't part of the question, but I'm going to caveat off of it into, because for a lot of these low carb marketed foods that are very high in sugar alcohols.
Oh my gosh, so many calories, and they don't count. They never count it, and that'll mess up your digestion.
That's an FDA loophole. That's some sneaky shit.
Yeah, and sugar alcohols are terrible for your digestion too. So honestly, I used to be a fan of like the high fiber, low carb foods, and now I'm just honestly not. Like,
is it because you started to understand how they make you feel?
I went to the ER. I was hospitalized for constipation one time. That's me getting very raw and vulnerable because I was doing that. Sam took me. Like, it was so bad. And you guys, it was so
painful. She was in the office like this.
I couldn't.
On the floor.
I couldn't, like, sitting down hurt, laying down hurt, but you want to be careful with that stuff. And, like, I don't think it's worth it at all. Like, I feel like over the years of developing, I've been, you know, competing in the fitness industry for damn near 10 years now. It's like whole foods. I've really shifted to like organic, less processed, less artificial sweeteners, less sugar alcohols. You know, I'm not buying the lowest calorie thing that I can get.
Yeah.
I'm looking for quality ingredients, and I would rather just take the calories or eat less at the end of the day.
That's another one we could probably talk about for a while, but we won't say.
Yeah, we could really go on some of these.
I got a couple more. So, are simple and complex carbs interchangeable? Example, if you don't want rice, could you do berries instead?
I would say in the off season, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're in a hardcore diet phase and you're trying to get shredded and really maximize that, then no.
So, what's going to be the biggest difference between the two? I think between a dieting and a growing phase is just going to be like the glycemic index, right? Or the absorption digestibility rate.
And your risk of going hypo.
Yeah.
Like if you're dieting really hard, like even some people that don't even compete will come to us on very low calorie diets. Like they'll be dieting on like 1,000 calories, 1,200 calories, and on semaglutide, very low carb diets. Like, and they'll be trying to train and exercise, and they feel like shit, and they don't know why, and they're getting symptoms of hypoglycemia during training and cardio and all those things.
Yeah.
So whether it's simple or complex, you can actually prevent your risk of going hypo, which can be very dangerous.
Yeah.
So that's a big piece of it too. It's like if you're dieting really hard, you need to pay attention to those details.
But in an off-season phase, I would say sure.
When carbs are in abundance, and like I said, there's not actual risks of that, then yeah. It's really fine.
Okay, I've got one more kind of related to fitness. So I think this one, for a C-section scar, say, well, the C-section scar shall be flat with just more cardio and or stronger abs or scar tissue scraping. So it's going to depend how far postpartum you are. So because a C-section is an incredibly invasive surgery that's going through so many layers in your body. It's going through skin tissue and muscle tissue and fat tissue, everything in that system. So the inflammation isn't going to come down as quickly, and that scar tissue isn't going to lay flat as quickly. So I honestly can't even remember how long it took for mine to lay completely flat, but understand that that's not a fat problem. That's an inflammation. That's a healing thing. So there are some ways there are some ways like you can do, I would say, for being within a year postpartum, being very careful with doing any kind of scraping. It can, like, light scraping can improve blood flow, which is going to increase the, collagen production, and is going to increase healing in that area. But ultimately, it's just going to be time. It's not a cardio thing. It's not a nutrition thing. It's going to be more just time to let that scar tissue heal, because it is like throughout everything in your insides. But mine's like, I mean, my child is now almost 21, but you can hardly even see mine now. It's completely flat. Like I said, I don't remember how long it took to get there, but it was probably a couple years. Yeah. Last one was, what inspires you to keep going?
Oh man, you go first. I gotta think about it for a second.
There's a lot of things, and we come from very different like backgrounds and where we started and what got us into bodybuilding. But what keeps me going is I remember how miserable I was, like mentally, physically, socially, like every part of my life was miserable before I started doing this. And now it has given me the opportunity to help and lead so many people. And I don't mean like lead in a forceful way, but because I know that there's people, my clients, my athletes, my friends, my child, my family, people who follow my journey and what I do, that I feel like if I just gave up, it would be very disappointing to a lot of people. But more so, I like that anything I have ever been able to do, someone was able to take away from that and make themselves better. And I want to continue to inspire people to just be healthier, be better versions of themselves.
That's a good answer. That's a good, very selfless answer. Mine is much more selfish than that. Mine is solely passion driven. I mean, I can't not do it. It's a selfish answer. All the best things in my life came from bodybuilding. I got my best friend. I got my boyfriend. I got some of the best friends I've ever had in my life. The most feelings of accomplishment, in the other hard things that happen in life, I was able to come back from because of bodybuilding. No matter how hard things were sometimes or what I was going through, I was still able to control myself and make progress with my physical self. And that was it's a control thing. It's like I always had control over it. And I love that it's the one thing that I can always do. I can always be better. I can always improve. It's 100% up to me. Nobody can buy it for you. Nobody can take it from you.
There's no finish line. There's like no definitive end.
There's no definitive end. It's like people can't give it to you. They can't take it from you. You wear what you do, and like Sam said, I mean, it's inspiring to people. And I've every time somebody's ever come up to me and told me that I inspired them to start or to do something or motivated them, it fills my soul. It's just so much passion. But that's why I believe in it so much, and I feel like that's why we believe in it so much, is because we know what it's done for our lives. We know what fitness can do for other people in their lives as far as opening up opportunities in all areas of life for them. Life is just different. People interact with you different. You perform different. A body transformation, we always say, is more than just a body transformation. There's so much more that goes into it.
It is. It completely. So the discipline that it takes to do this transforms every single aspect of your life. It's not just your body. The body. I mean, the aesthetic is cool. It's cool to be jacked and lean and strong as heck, but it will change your discipline and the way you view your relationships with people, what you do in business, and that's we. I love like Andy Frisella and what they do with First Form and kind of the ideology behind that company, and it is really true. It is really true.
Yeah, in bodybuilding, or investing into your body and investing into your physical self, getting in shape, it's like it increases your confidence but humbles you at the same time. Every single day, because no matter how good you get, there's always somebody that's better than you, which means that what they're doing can be done because they're a human just like you. But there's levels, and you can just continue climbing those levels, and there's no end, and there's so many different things you can do with it. So it's very, very passion driven, and
very passion driven.
Yeah, I still feel like I have so far to go, and it makes me excited.
Yeah, I'm nowhere close to stopping.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to do, and I can't even imagine walking away ever. Honestly, there's no way.
Either.
I would rather not.
It started as a selfish answer, but that was a really good answer. It ended up being really
Thanks.
nice.
All right. Well, thank you guys for asking us questions. If you like this kind of content, please let us know. Make sure you like, subscribe, click the bell button. Sam, any closing remarks?
We got some big stuff coming soon.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes, we do.
So stay tuned.